Okay, so there's one common mistake or just question that comes up a lot, and I already said this, just true for all of these calculations, right? And that is, right, I can figure out what the K is, but the biggest question is, well, what velocity do I use? Right? In terms of these expressions. So you have a V1, definitely less than V2 because it contracts, and you have a V1 much greater than V2. So the rule is, right, I already said this, that you always use the largest velocity. So always use max velocity. So in terms of expansion or contraction, right, this is a faster velocity because it contracts, so you got to use that one. In terms of an expansion, you use that one. So you can memorize, right, the situations or cases, but I always found this helpful because this is true for any sort of piping problem, is whenever you're putting in these velocities, use the biggest one, reasonable throughout the pipe. So that's for these expansion contractions, I can always get there because I go like, wait, got to use the max velocity, means this one, means this one. Some people just memorize, like, if I'm in a contraction, I use the downstream. If I'm in an expansion, I use the upstream. But I think this is more helpful. And that's the story for, right, all minor losses that we have, right? You can calculate a K if it's an expansion or contraction. So I put this on here, right? You can calculate it if it's expansion contraction. Look them up. Look up K elsewise if it's a valve or something like that. So these are valves, elbows, threading, etc. Once you have these Ks, right, then you can calculate minor losses, right? Because you already have that. And you have the V squared. Again, what V squared do I use, right? Largest in terms of expansion or contractions. But again, people sometimes get freaked out of what velocities should I use. So maybe one more step for these minor losses, right? Depending on what section of pipe you're in, velocity, right, is that flow rate divided by area. So sometimes you can just do it like this because you can measure diameter. So that's where this velocity is coming from. And this is this maximum velocity that we're going to use throughout piping things. And then you would actually have all the things for your minors. Okay. So that's the whole story of minor losses and the whole story of major losses.